Jim Chalmers last night promised to rein in spending on the costly National Disability Insurance Scheme, saying the government can deliver almost $500 million in savings by 2027. It comes after economists warned that without any intervention, the scheme would blow out by as much as $100 billion over the next 10 years. But the government claims the cost cutting won't diminish the quality of the NDIS, with the Treasurer saying the scheme is here to stay. Essentially, they want to make it sustainable. Joining me now is the NDIS and Government Services Minister, Bill Shorten. Good to see you.
Likewise.
Is the NDIS sustainable at the moment?
The NDIS is here to stay. Jim Chalmers again reinforced that last night. I think the scheme's future is great, so long as we prioritise the best interests of the participant, the actual person for whom the scheme was designed.
That's not happening at the moment, is it?
Well, it is changing lots of people's lives, but I think that we can do better. We want to improve the way that the scheme interacts with the participants, and also I want to make sure that people on the scheme are not being overcharged or underserviced or not receiving the value.
And that's happening a lot, isn't it? It's not so much the rorts that we hear about, but the inflation within the NDIS, and that, you know, people, providers are essentially going, oh, government money, we're going to triple the cost of that. How do you stop that?
It is a challenge.
Quickly.
It is a challenge. I just want to reassure participants, one thing...
But it's a threat, isn't it? It's more than just a challenge, isn't it, Mr Shorten? It's a threat to the very sustainability of the scheme, if that keeps on happening.
Well, I'm confident that if we put proper resources into the system to run it, that we can eliminate unethical conduct. By last night was the largest single injection of new funds into the administration of the scheme since it was established. We want to work with the states to build up disability inclusion services for people who don't need to be on the NDIS. We want to have longer term planning. It's very traumatising for participants each year to have to go and say, yes, I still am blind, or yes, I still am a quadriplegic, or yes, I still have, you know, severe autism.
We're not talking about that, are we? We're not talking about what the scheme was originally designed to do, is for the profoundly disabled. And those examples that you give, it's more going back to first principles, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you had your time again, would you have designed it differently?
Well, I wouldn't have had the 9 years of coalition government and just didn't pay attention to it. This scheme was left to just evolve higgledy-piggledy. But when we talk about reform, and what we're talking about last night and what the Treasurer was talking about is long-term reform, the starting point for that process is to talk to the people who rely on the scheme, for whom it's life-changing, and say, the scheme's going to be okay. We are committed to it. We think that we can do a better job now of making sure that every dollar gets through to the people for whom the scheme was designed. So if you look at it just through the discussion of, oh, there's a sustainability crisis, everyone puts up the shutters, they feel threatened, they feel, oh my God, it's like muscle memory of the last 9 years. That's not what we're talking about. I honestly believe we can moderate cost growth in the scheme by running the scheme properly and in the best interest of the participant.
Yeah. But again, going back to first principles, this was sold as a safety net for the profoundly disabled. It has become something else. Do you accept that perhaps there are some people receiving thousands of dollars from the NDIS that shouldn't be?
No, I'm not going to say that the problem with the cost growth of the scheme are the people on the scheme. I think that's lazy just to go to that as the entry point. Do I think that for kids who have developmental delays at an early age, that the NDIS is now the only lifeboat in the ocean, so they're being pushed that way? Yes. I do think we need to have a better capacity to help precious babies at 12 months and 2 years with diagnosis and seeing what they need. Not every child with a developmental delay should end up on the NDIS, but at the moment, it's all we have. So I think in the creation of the NDIS, I do believe that some of the states and some of the mainstream services now say everything's an NDIS matter, where actually that isn't the case.
That's right. But so you've capped, sorry to interrupt you, but essentially capping funding growth.
No, we're setting a target. That's very important.
Is it a target?
Yes.
It's not a cap?
No.
Right. That's a problem, isn't it?
No, it would be a problem if it was a cap because that would be illegal. It's a demand-driven scheme. Let's not.
So when you move,
I think you're going to the real heart of it. It's a really important issue.
But when Albo said it's gone from 14% growth to 8%, that's just a lofty target.
No, it's the assumption of what we're doing in our reforms. See, my predecessors just looked at the NDIS and put it in a room and shut the door and didn't know what to do with it. What we're doing by working with...
unwieldy.
Well, but also, to be honest, you had some really ignorant stuff going on for the last 9 years. And I know people don't want to hear politics, but I wouldn't trust the coalition to run an NDIS. They just don't get it. They don't understand it. They think it's a welfare program which should be capped. It's not. I'll use the analogy of Medicare.
Why not?
Because it's not. It's not a...
But why
it's
not?
not...
There's
Because,
got to be a limit to it,
no,
right?
here we go. You don't cap the health system. You don't say that if someone's sick in April of a financial year, sorry, we've run out of money this year, you come back and be sick on the 1st of July.
It's different, isn't it? Because
No,
a
it's
sick
actually...
person is different to looking after the
Oh,
profoundly disabled. I mean,
LJ, no, this is a fundamental issue.
Mr. Shorten, for those with ADHD to be included in the
Let me
scheme.
finish my point.
I mean, you sensibly ruled that out.
Yeah, but no, let me finish my point, because this goes to the nature of the scheme, and I get that a lot of people, I'm not being rude here, don't understand the scheme. Disability is a fact of life. You can get it at birth, you can get it in the blink of an eye on a country road, you can get it for early onset diseases. But because someone is impaired profoundly, doesn't mean that they should be denied having opportunities in this country.
No one's talking about the profoundly disabled, to be
No, but-
honest. I mean, when you first
No, but
started
when you use
this
terms
scheme,
like, you
claimed that, you know,
you actually
in many
were,
ways,
to be honest, you actually said, oh, it should be capped, it shouldn't be just a demand-driven. I really fundamentally disagree with you. I think a lot of what you say makes sense, but I couldn't agree less with you on that one.
No, I don't think those that are profoundly disabled should at all miss out. I think the cap is arbitrary, but I think that the remit of the scheme should be clearer as to who the NDIS is there for.
I see that point, and we've got the review coming in October. There's 580,000 people on the scheme. When the scheme was set up, it wasn't predicted to have that number of people on the scheme. Part of that is because there's a lot of unmet need, and people just didn't measure it. When we first set up the scheme, some states couldn't tell us how many disabled people they had in their states. But do I think that in the area of early intervention for kids, what's happened is the NDIS is such an influential system that what we're getting is diagnosis following the money.
Yeah.
So that, and I don't blame any mama bear parent whose child has got a developmental delay. If this is the only place that you can get help, that's where you'll go.
Yeah.
So part of the solution to the NDIS and moderating cost growth is ask what's in the best interest of that little child. Is it to be on the NDIS, or is it to have other interventions, which actually means they can go on to school and get other support?
When this was sold to the Australian public under the Gillard government, you were a big part of that. We were told that this would be a massive productivity measure. Essentially, it would wash its face in many ways, and those on the scheme would be able to work and contribute back to the economy.
And some are.
That has not happened
the
way you promised it.
No, I don't agree. What the scheme hasn't done is talked about the positive effects it's having. That has just been a totally neglected area. You're going to see from the quarterly reports going forward, we're going to start measuring outcomes. The problem is that for 9 years, this scheme has just been viewed as a payment system. Get money out the door. No attention to what's being paid for. No attention to making sure it's not being inappropriate, things aren't being inappropriately claimed. But it is making life-changing impacts. And I bet you right now that if we were to do a call out, I mean, I don't know how many people watch the show, but just generally a call out.
A lot.
A lot. Awesome. Well, do you know what? The NDIS is even changing more lives than that. You will find that for a lot of people, they never want to go back to what it was. Do I think we can moderate the cost growth? Yes, but the way we'll do it is not through scaring the pants off everyone and saying, you, disabled person, shouldn't be getting something.
No.
The way we do it is you actually have a system which is in the best interests of the disabled person, not an impersonal bureaucracy, not a service provider.
Yeah.
If people feel that they're treated humanely, that they're not always under constant threat of losing something, and that they're not treated as a human ATM by some service providers, there are many good ones, that's how we get there.
Oh, OK, you say there are many good ones. Only one service provider, has been, disbarred, essentially, from not being able to be provided the NDIS. There's many more dodgy ones. So what's going on there?
Well, I don't think my predecessors paid enough attention to this area. That is why we set up a new criminal task force in October. That's now got...
It's not just criminal, though.
So it is some of that. But the second thing is the regulator has been very poorly funded. That's why the regulator last night in the budget's received an extra $142 million because we've got to crack down on it. But there's also another change. Why does it take a Labor minister or a regulator or a cop to tell people to treat disabled people better? Maybe there should be a bit of a culture change in this country, that if someone who's in a wheelchair has an NDIS package, doesn't mean that the service provider or the person selling them a particular bit of equipment ups the price and rips them off. Maybe perhaps in life...
They see it as ripping the government off. And
yeah, well, do you know what? They're actually stealing from people with scarce finite packages. And maybe we need a bit of a culture change. As a general rule, it's uncool to park in a disabled car spot.
It's more than uncool.
It's bad. But the point is, we need to make that same sort of rejection of bad behaviour in overcharging people on the scheme.
All right.